to you and I'm thinking about Amy Wax, who you just had back on.
Yes, I did. I'm glad
That's
you
what I'm
watched.
thinking about.
Thank you for watching. Okay, or maybe you're not
I
watching.
did.
Maybe you just know I had her on. But anyway, yeah. What about her?
No, I listened to the whole
Oh,
thing.
thank you.
Well, I no, I always listen. Um, I so it was interesting because I find her positions deeply, deeply problematic, and I also am really troubled by the way that she's being treated by Penn. And this is, again, what we're talking about when we're talking about tribes. I mean, you're talking about sort of what language is appropriate. And maybe the bigger question is, and you're talking about Sam Harris saying, okay, it's okay to suppress certain kinds of news stories because Donald Trump poses such an existential threat. And I almost feel like writ small, that's the analogy with Penn and Amy Wax, where they can't really come up with anything that she did that runs afoul of their rules. But basically, it seems like they're saying she's such an existential threat that we should get rid of her anyway. She just needs to be
Have
silenced.
you read Dean Ruger's letter to the president of the Faculty Senate requesting this proceeding? It's Orwellian. I mean, it is unbelievable. In my humble opinion, eerie. It's eerily disquieting to me. Uh, and she denies a lot of the stuff that 10 years ago a student said she said this in class. I mean, goodness, this kind of it's very creepy to me.
I did read it. I did read it, and I'm a founding member of the Academic Freedom Alliance, this group of professors who believes in free speech, and we put out a statement condemning what Penn is doing. Not,
Oh,
of course, because we all agree with Amy Wax or maybe any of us do, but because, as you say, there is something Orwellian and disturbing going on. And here's sort of the bigger problem with this. I mean, you're making one point, which I want to get back to, which is you're saying, look, when you have people with a massive following saying it's okay to suppress certain stories because we have this existential threat, what essentially that's doing is allowing people to have even less trust in media institutions and be even more cynical about them than they were already. And so it erodes public trust in the media. It erodes public trust that we're actually all getting access to the same information, or that we're able to really decide for ourselves what's true and what's not. And I think we're seeing, you and I, in our own institutions, the same battles playing out where there's this sense that, okay, the quote unquote other side, the MAGA people, the fascists, Antifa, whoever seems extreme, depending on your politics, those people are such an existential threat that they shouldn't be allowed to speak. And I find that so problematic because if there was any place where we're supposed to debate ideas, it's got to be in academia. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, that's a big reason why I went into academia, was to have these debates. And it's especially important to me as someone who's a lifelong trial lawyer and an advocate to be able to understand what the argument is on the other side, whatever it is, the strongest argument, the most extreme argument. You need to know what that is so that you can rebut it. And if you sit in a silo or you swim around in a fishbowl and everybody is a goldfish and there are no other fishes that have opposing views or swimming in the opposite direction, you're just going to swim around and around and the water's going to get cloudier and you're going to get dumber. And it worries me. I feel like we're not actually educating our students when we say, we don't trust you to sort out fact from fiction. So we're just going to keep these ideas from you. And I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. That's classic John Stuart Mill on Liberty. If you don't know the other side's argument against you, you don't know your own case. That's like if you don't have the muscle memory of having to defend your position, pretty soon you don't even believe your own position. It's just incantation of a dead dogma and not a living knowledge or understanding of whatever it is. So, of course, I agree with that. Um, I mean, I thought, frankly, because we had this incident here at Brown when the police commissioner, Ray Kelly of New York City, was not permitted to speak. It was big brouhaha. He was shouted down, like 2013, something like that. And the faculty produced a report, a committee, and then the report grounded its argument on harm, on this idea that the students who were offended by Ray Kelly, the police commissioner of New York's support for stop and frisk, were somehow harmed or made to feel insecure by the presence of this individual who had this view about policy. That was one of their main considerations, and that needed to be weighed in the balance when you make decisions about who to have speak. And I thought, if indeed Ray Kelly is wrong about stop and frisk, let me stipulate that I think he is. The most effective thing I can do is have him come and put that position and then rebut him. The students are being protected from hearing his advocacy for the policy. No, they're being deprived of the opportunity to hear a refutation of his advocacy of the policy. This kind of thing. So Amy Wax is alleged to have injured students by presenting arguments to them about things that she thinks about immigration or racial differences, social status or values and norms or whatever, that they don't know how to rebut. He actually says that in the letter, or quotes a student saying it. I was so hurt by her taking this position, and I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to argue with her. Well, so she should therefore be infantilized by not being equipped with the capacity to argue with the position, by preventing the position from ever being put before her in the first place. That's an abdication of our pedagogic responsibilities, it seemed to me.
Right. And getting back to the stop and frisk point, how are you going to be able to explain why you think stop and frisk is wrong if you can't answer Ray Kelly's arguments about why it's right? In other words, your argument is just going to, as you say, die in the silo. And I feel like it's the same thing with Amy Wax. I find her views, quite frankly, about race, about gender, I find them abhorrent. But my response to that is I would prefer to have a debate with her than have what appear to be trumped up charges brought against her in a very politicized environment, so that she is completely deprived of her ability to make her arguments, even though there really isn't anything in Penn's tenure rules that say that she can't.
It's a stretch. She's said to have actually, created a hostile environment in so many words. I mean, those are not the exact words they're using. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but to have acted in such a way as to students don't want to take her courses. Colleagues are ashamed of her. She embarrasses the institution by saying she exploits the imprimatur of the institution to advance her noxious views. She invites people who are beyond the pale to speak, etc. So that seems to be the case.
But at the heart of that case, I think, is the idea that her words and her views are harassment and violence, that they are actual instruments of psychological, if not physical, harm. And we have really robust ideas about who's allowed to say what in the United States and even in private institutions like Penn, because we generally don't believe, except in very extraordinary cases, that words are violence. But I think we're moving towards an expansion of what harm means and what violence is that I find troubling.
Isn't this another one of these team things where, I mean, for example, I can remember back a few years ago when this free speech thing was kicking around, seeing a bumper sticker on a lamppost. Free speech equals hate speech. And my understanding of that was the free speech people like you, Laura, who have weaponized free speech are in a stalking horse kind of position for defending unacceptable values. So it's like you try to move the debate over to the arena of free speech, but it's really that you want, I don't know, racist and homophobic and transphobic ideas to get, so like Dave Chappelle will say, I'm just joking. He's not just joking. He really wants to hurt trans people from this point of argument. The Sandra Sellers, who was the lecturer at the Georgetown Law Center who got fired after she was heard saying that she lamented that the kids at the bottom of her class disproportionately were blacks, and she got fired. She was saying, "Oh, I was just reporting the facts." But no, 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 no. Actually, it's white supremacy so it's a way of viewing black kids that has finally been exposed. So the procedural argument is really on this argument. The argument I'm making now, contra the procedural argument, the free speech argument, is you're not really concerned about the rules about speech. You're concerned about the substantive questions under contention here, and you're on the wrong side of those questions, and you're using free speech as a cover. What would you say to that?
I think there's some validity in that. I mean, I have no idea what Georgetown's statistics are with respect to racial outcomes in my own schools or anyone's schools. So I don't know if she was correct or not.
Right.
But I think the point is to ask that underlying question rather than just condemn her as a racist and get rid of her because you don't want to engage with the substance of what she's saying. And